Heyo. This is my friends playing a test version of my card game, and this is the foundation of that same game made in GameMaker. Yeah, I know this doesn't look as fun, but in this video, I want to explain why setting this part up is important to making almost any video game, and some of the personal milestones I've reached as a developer. Oh, and also why I'm making a card game in the first place. Okay, let's get into it. Hey you! Who, me? Yes, you! Do you have ideas of making a fully polished and playable game that you can share with the people around you, but you have this crippling imposter syndrome that stops you from actually finishing a product, so you work on it in pieces until a new wave of inspiration hits you, and then you spend all your time working on something new while the old project collects dust? I mean, just please say yes. Please. If you've ever seen any anime this course, then you've probably seen this image before. And while I personally find this image hilarious, I had a horrifying realization. I was turning into a potential man. I would always talk to my family and friends about games I was working on, but when I got home, I would usually work on a tiny project and then never really show anyone. I chalked this failure up to two major issues within my game development journey. I didn't really understand how to program, and I'll get into that a little bit more later, and the fact that I have a job. Okay, listen up, trigger warning for the next section, because I know this word is highly offensive to a lot of people, and I don't like saying slurs, but I have a job. In fact, I have multiple jobs. I work as a server during the day, a teacher in the afternoon, and do media work at night. This obviously isn't every day, but it leaves me with limited time to really focus on my passions. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, but Ori, you could always just quit your job and go full-time like the other devs here on YouTube. And as awesome as that sounds, the reality is that I enjoy living in my house. I've seen other devs post their numbers on here versus their cost of living and how much they've eaten into their savings, and I, for one, would actually like to save my savings. Yes, insane, I know. So for now, I'm following the old saying of don't quit your day job and just trying to chip away slowly at my ideas, which leads me to my second issue. Hot take, but programming is pretty darn hard. Yes, I know, thank you very much. No, like really, I can't thank you enough. Because I'm an artist, basically every project I've worked on has stemmed from really nice concept art that I've designed, and in trying to make a game around my artwork. And for some of the projects I've made, this has worked pretty okay. But I'll let you in on a little secret, okay? You gotta promise not to tell anyone this, okay? Okay, it's just between me and you, alright? Don't do this. Well, yes, I think coming up with a concept, even if it's not a static image, is difficult. There is an inherent difficulty difference between making this versus this. And that's really because this one also includes this one, and lots of other things that you don't typically see. Video games are a lot more than just their artwork. It's visuals, programming, music, storytelling, and the list goes on and on. But I think when people sit down and try to think about how a game is made, there's typically two different trains of thought. Game development seems impossible, and I have no idea how anyone is able to do that. Or, nah man, game development is actually so simple. With AI, you can, no, because I'm not a loser, I have to with actually trying to understand basic programming and make video games with the knowledge I've gained. But this quickly led me into some issues. For a lot of the games I've tried to make in the past, I would always get stumped by some major coding roadblock that didn't have a beautifully put together YouTube tutorial, and left me to figure it out on my own, which would eventually lead to me stopping production, as I couldn't quite figure out how to move past it. But wait a minute, hold on. I graduated high school and dropped out of college, just like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. And those guys are geniuses. So why do I struggle so much with programming? Oh snap, yeah, I should probably read that, huh? Since I didn't have much time in my day due to my job and I barely understood programming, I decided to take my own advice and start small, and I mean really small. I learned about state machines and made a few projects that literally had a box switch states and show text based on the state, which I know would have been revolutionary in the 1940s, but in the 21st century, this has the same awe as pressing a key on your computer and a character appears. But what made these projects special is that I didn't watch a single video tutorial and only used my personal knowledge and the GameMaker manual to make these concepts. And this really showed me how much I relied on video tutorials, and while helpful for getting me inspired, were greatly holding me back. During this time, my brother mentioned he wanted to start working on his card game again, and I thought, hey, that's a great idea. So now I'm making one. Now here's my reason behind it. To this day, the reason I got into game development was because I wanted to share my creations with my friends and people around the world. And not only is the concept of a card game relatively simple, but the core concept can be expanded into something much bigger. So, with this in mind, I began brainstorming some ideas until I settled on a concept that seemed simple enough. Growing up, my brother and I would play a game called War, where you would split the deck in half and put a card from your hand down to see who has the highest number. Whoever had the highest number would take the loser's card, and the game would repeat until we ran out of cards or someone quit. I personally loved how simple the game was, and how even at 9 years old I was able to play. So I wanted this game to be easy enough that a kid could play it, but still fun for an adult. Of course, while developing ideas, I ran it by my wife, and she was very quick to tell me which parts she loved and hated. I also wanted the game to be able to use a standard deck of cards, so that anyone can play, even if you don't technically have a computer. After some time, here's the current idea. I call it Double or Nothing. Working title. Here's how the real-life version works. 2 players draw from a deck until they each have 4 cards. Unlike War, everyone's cards are visible at all times, and players must draw a card of their choice at the exact same time. Whoever has the lowest card is then given the option to either accept the loss, draw a new card from the deck, or ask their opponent double or nothing. If you accept the loss, a point is given to the winner and you play again. If you draw a card from the deck and the number is lower, you automatically lose that turn and the next turn starts. If the number is higher, however, the opponent can then force a double or nothing, or accept the loss. If you lose, and you ask your opponent double or nothing, and they decline, you lose the turn. But if they accept, it throws you into a mini game, which for the real life version I'm using chopsticks. But this can be any game that your friend group decides to use. My best friend decided to do pull-ups and arm wrestle. It became a whole thing. Once the mini game is over, the winner is awarded 2 points, and the loser is given the opportunity to roll a die. Depending on what the die lands on, the loser will then gain a power-up that can be used at any point during the card game to give themselves a bit of an edge. The game finally ends when someone reaches 10 points and it's best 2 out of 3. And that's the basics of the game. There's a bit more to go into, and this concept is obviously highly expandable. So if you have any ideas on how to make the core gameplay loop a bit more fun, please let me know in the comments. A few of my friends actually helped me tweak the original concept, as the gameplay for the first version was kinda dull, which didn't include the force double or nothing mechanic or the bonus card mechanic. I know that was a lot, but what mattered now is that I technically had a game that was actually pretty fun to play with my family and friends. So with the planning out of the way, now all that was time to do was move on to the prototype. So when I normally make games, I'll typically make a sketch like this to get an idea for how I want the game to generally feel. This workflow is normally okay, but I find that it gets me hooked on the art more than the actual programming. So I'll end up making these really cool concepts and then realize I have to translate that into my code, which ultimately leads to me feeling discouraged and dropping a project. The goal with this game is really about if I can even translate my idea into a video game, which I know the answer is yes. You're watching this video on a device that can calculate millions of things at a time, so I know my card battler is possible. But what I really mean is if I'm able to make this. I'm not gonna lie to you, the first thing I did was look up how to make a card game in GameMaker and watched a few tutorials, but this didn't really feel like I was retaining anything, and quite frankly, I was just copying line for line what these tutorials were telling me. Which I want to mention is fine if you're just starting out, as it can help you understand the basic fundamentals of programming. But at this point, I've been programming on and off for the last 2 years, and I really felt like I should understand how to do certain things myself. Since I started with a lot of video tutorials, it was really drilled into me early that you should have clean and readable code and make sure your game is as optimized as it can be. But I never really understood what it meant to have clean and readable code, and would just spend most of my time reorganizing everything until it looked professional. I can't just write anything down without proper format. Or can I? See, the reason I keep failing is because I'll learn how to do something the right way and then think that's how I always have to do it. But then it dawned on me, I can program literally however the fuck I want. So that's exactly what I did. I stopped watching YouTube tutorials and started reading the manual whenever I felt I was stumped on an issue. Computers are literal, so I realized I can tell it what to do and it doesn't really matter how it gets done. And that really helped me knock out some progress. I learned how one-dimensional and two-dimensional arrays work and was able to make a deck using basic numbers. Here's what I have to say while I was programming this.
I'm so proud of this. I know it's not going to look really impressive to any experienced game devs or programmers, but what we have here is a system, a very simple system. Imagine that this is a deck, right? So it goes through one, it's for test reasons, it's 1 through 5.
Okay, actually, I'm going to just explain with the better mic because bro does not stop yapping for whatever reason. What you're seeing is an array of numbers, with each number representing a card in a deck. GameMaker actually has built-in functions for shuffling arrays and randomizing the seed of your game, so the deck isn't always the same every time. Once an input is detected, the deck array gets pushed into the player deck array, and this is how players are able to draw cards. From there, it's pretty simple, as all I had to do was add some code that detects the player's inputs and then compare those selections against each other to award the winner a point. If that explanation didn't make sense, just imagine the cards are in one inventory and I transfer them into another person's inventory for use. From that point on, it was really just about making it so that the player can cycle through their menus and use counter options. I made some timers to delay certain actions so inputs wouldn't be registered on the same frame, and boom, we have a deck that can be shuffled, and cards can also be added into other players' inventories. And funny enough, adding the minigame wasn't super complicated either. I knew how to make menus using arrays, so I just used that knowledge to make a minigame that spawns once double or nothing is confirmed. Is my code pretty? No, not really, but it works. And for once, I really felt like I was understanding what I was doing, and I'm immensely proud of that. I know some people are visual learners, and reading the documentation seems like a major headache, but there's some insanely useful knowledge that GameMaker provides literally for free. So my advice to you watching, yes, you, David, it's to use the manual in tandem with video tutorials, and then eventually try making simple test projects that just challenge your understanding of the language. GameMaker has a ton of built-in functions that make certain aspects of programming much easier as well. And the manual goes into great detail about a lot of these topics, and even provides examples that you can just copy and paste into your projects to see how it works. I'm not sponsored by GameMaker, by the way, this is just pure glaze for the love of the game. But hey, GameMaker, if you want to sponsor me, I would accept in a heartbeat, just saying. But wait, hold on a minute. This looks terrible! And to that, I say, yes, I agree. So of course in the next devlog, we're gonna go over some of the art side of developing this card game, which I've already started making some of it because I just couldn't help myself. So I'm very excited to show that off soon. Take care of yourself, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Dude, what the hell is chopsticks?